Hello everybody and welcome back to another Minecraft tutorial. In this video I'll be showing you how to build this witch farm that I've designed. It's intended for use in 1.9 which is currently still in development. Now the idea here is that this witch farm doesn't use any bug exploits like the shifting floors which have been patched in 1.9 and therefore it should be good for the final release. Now this works in the latest snapshots, it works in 1.8 as well, and as I said should work in the release because it doesn't use any bug exploits. Now this is a solid and reliable design. I've been using it for hours upon hours doing lots and lots of tests and it seems to be a really good farm. Now the last test that I did lasted for 70 minutes and these were all the items that we've got from it, and I've calculated that its drop rate is around 5,200 items per hour. So not the fastest in the world, but it should work in 1.9 and it's a solid and reliable design. Before we start the tutorial, I'd like to go over the farm and how it works. It may be obvious just by looking at it, but there are a few design choices here that I wanted to talk about, mainly the water over the back here. The reason I didn't use dispensers with water buckets is because they can create source blocks of water in front of them that you then can't get rid of. So the way that this works is a witch spawns on the platform, and they're instantly standing in the tripwire, which activates the tripwire hook at either end. So that's then going to power the piston, which pushes the redstone block across, allowing the item in this hopper to flow back, which will turn off the comparator, and the piston will pull down, and then the water will flow across until the witch falls down, and then the comparator will turn back off again because the piston has retracted and the item has moved across. Now one thing to note there is that when a witch spawns, it activates the one that they're directly in line with, so the water will always go flowing in a straight line towards the end, which means they don't get pushed over to diagonals and start activating other pistons, etc. So when they flow over to the edge, they fall down where the tripwire hook is, which means they don't activate the tripwire from the other floors. They just go straight down without activating anything on this floor, as you just saw. So another thing to point out is that we got some slabs here as well. My thinking was if they bob up and down in the water, they might move faster than when there are full blocks here, but I've actually done some extensive testing on that, and it doesn't matter if there is a half slab above the witch or a full block, they always tend to move out at the exact same speed. So that's pretty much everything you need to know about how this thing works. As always with these farms, the drop rate is based on the environment that it's in. We are in the ideal environment for a farm. There's absolutely nowhere else for the mobs to spawn, and this is something to always consider when building any type of mob farm in your world, is that it's the environment that's the most important thing. Now because this is a witch farm, that means that it's probably going to involve a lot of caving, building a perimeter around the farm, and that's going to be the most important thing when it comes to getting good rates from your farm. Just in case you didn't know it, a witch farm is built around a witch hut, which can be found in swamps. It is a structure in the game, and it has a bounding box in which only witches can spawn, which is exactly why we build these farms using these huts. So you'll need to find one in your world in a swamp biome, and then you'll need to build the platforms based around where the witch hut itself is. So you can see with the quartz slabs here, I've outlined where each of the floors will go. One thing I do want to point out is that the bounding box for where the witches spawn is actually bigger along here by one block, and the reason that we're not using this space is because of the design of the farm means the water will only flow as far as this bit right here. So unfortunately this part of the bounding box doesn't get used, but you know the farm still works just fine. So based on me flying around here, you should be able to see where exactly it is each of the floors go. So you want to put them in place, you want to remove all of this witch hut and then fill in the floors, and we're ready to move on to the next step. So it should look something like this when you're done, and I'd highly recommend clearing out a little bit of the area around it as well, just so you've got plenty of space to work with the farm. And to build it, you're going to need all of the materials in this chest, and there's quite a lot of stuff in here. So let's go through it. You're going to need around 3 stacks of glass. I'm not sure on the exact number, depends on how much you want to put in there. As always, you don't have to use glass, it is purely optional so you can see into the farm. And then you're going to need just under 3 stacks of string, and then 54 tripwire hooks and 54 hoppers. You'll need 27 items to put inside half of those hoppers, and then 27 sticky pistons, 27 regular pistons, and 27 comparators. As well as that, you can see here we've got just over 2.5 stacks of slabs. You need the same amount of full blocks as well, and no, they don't have to be quartz. You can pretty much use any type. And as well as that, you're also going to need 27 water sources, so 2 water buckets should do you good for that. And then down at the very bottom, you're going to need 9 hoppers and a chest. That's to collect all of the items after the witches have fallen down and landed on the hoppers. You can collect them into the chest automatically. And then to build the roof, you're going to need 926 slabs, which is a heck of a lot. So make sure you've got all of these materials prepared, ready to go, and then we can start building this thing. Okay, so we need to pick the longer side. You can see this one over here has more blocks than that one. That means this is the correct side to build on, and we want to go to the bottom floor and place a piston facing upwards, a block behind it, then go down by 1 and go across by 3 blocks. We then want to put a comparator facing into that block, and behind it 2 hoppers facing into one another, so you have to shift click them onto each other like that so they face into each other, and then put an item inside. That's going to activate the piston. We then want to put a sticky piston on top of this comparator so it faces forward, and then a block of redstone there, and then we put 3 blocks on top of it. And on the side of this one we put our tripwire hook and a block above. So hop up on here, place down a piston. We're basically going to build the same thing again, and I'm going to walk you through it just once more. So hoppers facing into one another and an item inside, then the sticky piston on top of the comparator with a block, a redstone block even right there, 3 more blocks, a tripwire hook on the end of this one, then a block on top of it with a piston facing upwards here. Comparator goes back into that block, and then we got our hoppers again. So just face them into one another, put an item inside, once again sticky piston, redstone block, 3 blocks like this, and then a tripwire hook right here. So there you can see we successfully built like one segment of the farm, and now what you need to do is build that again and again, going all the way across this side. So the next step is real simple. You can see that I put in glass over on these sides and these 2 over here. What you want to do is just go to where the piston head is extended, put a glass block there, 1 behind it, and then bring it all the way over by 1 more than the floor goes to. And then you want to visit each floor 1 by 1 and just fill in the water back here. So right click on the pistons, going all the way across, you want a water source block in front of every single piston, and do that on each floor, and then we're ready to move on to the next step. So when it comes to the glass, it is optional. I have filled all of this in right here, which is what I'd recommend doing, although you don't actually have to, because the gap here is just 1.5 blocks, so the witches won't be able to escape. But if you want to fill it in or not for this next bit, you will need some extra blocks, whether it's glass or regular ones, because you need to put in the tripwire hooks opposite the ones you've already placed. So this is above the gap that the witches are going to fall down, and you just need to put a tripwire hook on a block like that, and then have another block, because otherwise you're going to leave a gap which the witches can technically escape from. So what I would do is just fill this all in with glass so you can peer into the farm. As you can see here, you need tripwire hooks on each of the floors. So when you've done something like that, you just need to repeat it going all the way across. So once that's done, you should have something that looks like this. We've got our tripwire hooks going across each of the floors. Now the next thing we're going to do is build the drop that goes all the way down to the bottom, because we're going to kill the witches with full damage. Now it's important that we get the numbers right here. If you go over, you'll be absolutely fine. If you make it too short, then some of the witches might survive the drop, which will be a problem. So what we're going to do is start at this block right here. This is going to be number 1 of 32, because we want to go down by 32 blocks. So count down, and the 32 should be right here. So below that that block is where we place our half slab, and then below the half slabs is where we put our hoppers. So somewhere in the middle here, have a chest to collect your items, and then just have hoppers pointing into the chest like so, directly below the half slabs. So believe it or not, there are just 2 steps left for this farm. One of them should be really obvious. The other one is building a roof, which we will do after we've placed down all of the string. Now I would recommend blocking off that drop that we made in the last step. But to place down all of the string, here's how I'd recommend doing it. I'd start off on the side like so and go all the way across, but I wouldn't place in the last block, because when you do that it connects, and if you can see the black lines, they are significantly smaller than the hitbox size of this right here, which means it's just easier to place it off of the next one. So I would go across like this. I'd go all the way back and do it all the way to the far side because you've got that big hitbox to work with. And then the last thing I'd do is this row right here, because once you place the first one, the hitbox gets smaller and it's a little bit more finicky to place the next one. But basically do that on each floor and then we can move on to building the roof. So this is going to be fairly straightforward to build, but a little bit tedious because of its size. And we built this thing out of half slabs, by the way, so nothing will spawn on top of it during the night. But the idea is that the roof is going to block out the sunlight in the day and make sure that at all times the light level inside the farm is going to be 0. So to do that, we need to start off with a square in the middle on top of the farm that we built so far. This thing is the exact same size as the spawning platforms down below. So once you've placed that in, then what we need to do is extend it by 15 blocks in all directions, which means no light will make it into the farm. So what you want to do is count out 15 blocks in this direction and 15 blocks in this direction. So that's 15 blocks out in each direction. Then what we want to do is just place the blocks in a diagonal like this until they meet the other side. So that's been done. You can see I'd already done one on that corner over there, and the next thing to do would of course be doing it on the other 2 corners as well. And when all 4 corners are done, you should have something that looks like this. It should be pretty obvious where we're going from here. You just want to connect these up on each side and then fill in the entire space. So all of those bits that we've left open, like this section and that one, fill all of those in going all the way around, and then the roof will be complete. So there it is, a finished roof fully filled in. If we now go in the inside of the farm and look at the light level value, you can see at all points in the spawnable area it's now 0. For the last part of this tutorial, I want to drive home the point that the most important thing when it comes to getting good rates on a mob farm is the environment that it's in. And I've got a trick here for you that's going to make that a lot easier. It's an AFK spot up in the sky. I'm going to show you how to do this in a moment, but it means that you're loading far less of the world and you only need to do caving and removing spawn spots in the area directly around the witch farm itself. So let's go down below. You need to do caving just in this area around where the witch farm is and remove all spawnable spaces on the surface. Now because this is a swamp, that means lighting it up isn't good enough. You'll need to remove all of this grass around here, and then down in the caves down below, just out of where slimes will spawn, all you need to do is light it up with torches. So there's a very important number when it comes to mobs despawning, and that is 128. If you are 128 blocks away from a mob, it will automatically despawn. So the height of the drop right here is at Y32. That means if we go up by 128 blocks, we're going to arrive at the platform up the top. So the best place to put it is directly above the drop, like so. Another thing I wanted to mention is that obviously this area around here you would half slab or light up so none of these guys can spawn. But if we go all the way up, you'll see that this is just below 160. So 32 plus 128 equals 160. So by standing up here, no mob is going to automatically despawn when it reaches the bottom of the drop. And so by AFKing up here, we're loading a lot less of the world, and that should greatly help with increasing the rates in your farm. And yes, just in case you're wondering, you would build a ladder to get up here, of course. I've just built the platform at the correct place as an example, and that's it from me this Minecraft tutorial. There is a world download available in the description box if you've enjoyed the video. Please do leave a like and check out the tutorials playlist for more awesome tutorials like this one. If you haven't subscribed already, be sure to do so. That's it from me this video, so as always, thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Bye bye.